Extensive. As a matter of fact, I think it encompasses half of Pennsylvania, and for that matter, maybe if you're out of state, you could vote. I mean, this thing is huge, as you could see. There's several counties that are involved in it, and there is a very, very diverse electorate and voting bloc, and for that matter, interest throughout that very large congressional district. So we have a lot to talk about, as you might imagine. We're going to start with Representative Tim Murphy. Of course, he is the Republican candidate. He is the incumbent with this district, or whatever form of district it's been over the years. Let's take a snapshot of the congressman, and it is very brief, but it gives you a little bit. Obviously, the Republican who is out of Upper St. Clair. He has had the position for 5 terms, seeking his 6th, and he is also a psychologist by background and profession as well. Joining us tonight as well is Larry Maggi, and Mr. Maggi is the Washington County Commissioner Chairman, and he, of course, taking a look at his profile, is a Democrat. He also is, I believe, from Buffalo Township, living there right now, and seeking his 2nd congressional bid. He had one previously that got stopped in the primary, and he is back for a second bite of the apple. And again, the Washington County Commissioner. He was previously sheriff, and there's a whole lot more. Now, men, first of all, thanks, as I said at the outset and off the air, for being here this evening. I am one of those political junkies that have, when I was not that big, love sports and love politics. So it's really fun for me and an honor to have this opportunity. Now, Larry, before we get started, I do want to point out that I know that in addition to some of the things I pointed out about you, you've developed quite a bit of a reputation as a wrestling referee. So I bring that up for just
ready for politics.
Right, exactly. And I thought to myself, I've moderated debates, Congressman, and sometimes they get pretty vociferous. And when I say you got to get back in the corners, you respect me, you got to get back in the corners. But I'm thinking to myself, if I say something bad to the ex-Marine, he starts pounding my head off this table, you're the psychologist, can help me with the post-traumatic stress disorder. So maybe I'm in the best place I could possibly be tonight.
There you go. And I'm in the Navy, too, so we have our own ways.
I see. You have your own methods. Let's start with you. And gentlemen, what I'd like to do in this block very simply is this. Just continue the metaphor with the wrestling. You have the gold medal around your neck. He wants the gold medal around his neck. Why should you keep it?
Well, our country has a lot of problems right now. I've been working on many of those, and I've seen some successes in what I've done by working, reaching across Sal and representing the district. A number of successes, like saving the 9/11 Air Base when once again there was an attempt to shut it down, keeping the 171st Air National Guard, helping the Navy move over to that base as well, working at a commissary and post exchange, all these things for the military that's important. Making sure that the funding wasn't taken away from our Veterans Hospital when they tried to take over $100 million away and slow down its progress. I worked to keep that there. Several pieces of legislation I worked on, access to generic drugs, moving them forward so that you can get them safer and faster and cheaper. A bill that passed this year and signed into law, working also on steel issues. I'm the chairman of the Steel Caucus, and fighting China multiple times on tariff issues and making sure that we're protecting American-made goods, making sure that some of that thing also got into other legislation where we're making sure American bridges and highways are made with U.S.-made steel. Several things I've done and I've led. But we are headed down the wrong direction in this country with massive deficits, with an administration that continues to spend a great deal of money, that's only solution is raise more taxes and do more spending, to have a health care bill which is going to cost us $1 trillion in taxes over 10 years, and I believe it's going to eventually get to the point where it's going to cost us $1 trillion in cost each year. As more and more people are part of that and more employers dump their coverage. We've got a lot of serious problems here. And I want to continue to use my background as a healthcare provider, my leadership in Congress and working on environmental and manufacturing issues and energy issues to turn us around. Because we cannot simply sustain this road and expect things to get better. We've got serious problems here. I want to use that background to continue to fight for that.
Okay, so you've had 5 terms. That's not enough. You still have work to do. You want to have the first term of your career in Washington. Tell us why.
Well, I don't think Washington, D.C. Just doesn't get it. I was born, raised, educated, worked. Other than years I served in the Marine Corps as a young man, I never left southwestern Pennsylvania. I served as a state trooper for 24 years. I served as a county sheriff for 6 years. Right now I'm serving as a county commissioner. Southwestern Pennsylvania, Washington County, we balanced 9 budgets. We've cut government spending. We've also got the second lowest tax rate in southwestern Pennsylvania. I think Washington, D.C. could learn a lesson from Washington, Pennsylvania. We've also third in the nation, the county, in job growth. And we've also 9% average pay raise in Washington County for the average person. So we're kind of excited what's going on in Washington County. We worked with Democrats and Republicans to get things done, and I think Washington, D.C. could take a lesson from that. They just don't get it, Democrat and Republican. They want to continue to spend more money. They want to continue to do projects that we can't afford. And I think that with my background, being from southwestern Pennsylvania my whole life, working there, working on the highways and the streets, and understanding what's going on, seeing senior citizens have to decide whether they're going to get their medicine or pay the electric bill, or seeing the social services in the middle of the night, I feel like I know what's going on, and I think that I can make a difference in Washington, D.C. I want that opportunity to take a little bit of Washington, Pennsylvania's common sense to Washington, D.C.
I've heard that in your ads. I've seen it in your ads, and I think it's one of the more effective lines I've seen in a while. We're going to get to all of your men's ads here in a little bit later, and we're going to go through them, and we'll bicker about that. I think, frankly, that is just as a consumer watching at home, I always wanted somebody to do that, so I'm going to do it tonight. Your line about bringing Washington to Washington, though, aside, you had mentioned that Republicans and Democrats don't get it. I assume that if you thought he got it, that you wouldn't be running. So therefore, I'll further assume you don't believe he gets it. Why doesn't he get it?
Well, I think the congressman's out of touch. I think, first of all, he supported the Ryan budget, which essentially ends Medicare as we know it. I know we've talked about that. We want to use a voucher system, coupon system, or whatever you want to call it, basically giving senior citizens $6,000. It's going to cost the average person over $6,400 to have that insurance, almost $12,000 or $13,000. Now, whether you end it when they're 65 or whether you end it when they're 55, nevertheless, you're changing it, and you're ending it as we know it, and it's people who are 55 or younger paid into it, and they expect it, and it's been an effective way of providing health benefits for our citizens.
Okay, so he's not in touch. You're in Washington. You've become an insider. He's going to paint you that way, or seeking to paint you that way. You start off our conversation talking about the help that you provided, leadership you provided relative to the military, and that's obviously two separate pictures altogether. He used the phrase Medicare as we know it. Those few words are very important in the conversation and in a debate tonight. We'll talk about it later. I'll make a further assumption. You've been there, you've done it. He's done it on a local level and an admirable level. On the other hand, I'm assuming you believe that the scale and the depth of this is too broad for a man of his lack of experience.
Well, first of all, I don't think he's done on a local level. There's a law that requires him to balance every budget, but every year he's been in office, he's actually increased spending in Washington County. Now look, the federal government could balance its budget too if, and I've supported this, a constitutional amendment that requires us to balance our budget. But basically, Washington County has done well because it has casinos and has Marcellus Shale. So they get money every year from those. Even though spending goes up, in his office, 30% increase in the commissioner's office, while cutting spending in human services, children youth services, cutting positions, those kinds of things. But it comes down to this thing, and I got to talk about the big whopper that he continues to say, the $6,400 for Medicare. It's silly. WPXI did a comparison and said it simply is false. The Wall Street Journal said it's false. That is absolutely false. That's not what this is. But Medicare, as we know it, is going to die. If a doctor tells you you have to take your medicine or you're going to die, then you better change what you're doing. Medicare is running out of money. The health care bill took $716 billion out of there. And as far as being out of touch with my district, let me tell you how I'm in touch with my district. My district didn't want me to vote for that health care bill. I didn't. He does. My district didn't want me to support this stimulus bill. I did.
I wasn't there to vote for it.
He does support it. He says he would not vote to get rid of it. That means he supports it.
I thought I had a quote on him saying that he claimed that he didn't agree with it, that he thinks it needs to be fixed.
He said he would not vote to repeal it. That means you
I never
support
said that, Congressman.
Yes, you did. You said it at our Westmoreland County debate. You said it in the newspaper. You said
I never said that,
at the Post-Gazette.
You're
You
not
said you
telling
would
the
not
truth.
vote to repeal it.
You're not telling the truth.
I'm
sir.
telling the truth. You know,
Check the facts.
Can't vote maybe. The point is he said he would not vote to repeal the bill. So I guess he wants to keep the bill then. I don't know what it is. But
Would you repeal the bill? Vote to repeal the bill?
Well, we have to fix it. I mean, there's parts in there we have to fix.
If it came up for a vote to repeal the bill, would you repeal the bill?
Well, as I said,
Yeah,
it's
you
law.
don't-
It's law
you
right
don't
now.
get to
It's
vote
law
maybe.
right now, Congressman. The Supreme Court ruled on it. That's a problem in D.C.
No, the Supreme
Instead
Court-
of sitting here pointing the fingers, you should be doing things.
I do.
You're not doing things
yes,
down
we
there.
are.
Well,
The
what are you doing,
The
sir?
Supreme Court did not say that the bill was legal. They simply said Congress could impose a tax. Now, if you want to support that tax, you say so. The Supreme Court didn't say whether or not the bill. In fact, the Supreme Court said they can't rule on whether or not the bill makes sense, and it doesn't make fiscal sense, and it doesn't make sense to have the government telling your doctor what to do. Now, in one occasion, you said you would not have voted to support the bill if you were there. Another place, you said you will not vote to repeal it. Let me ask you this: have you read the bill?
No, I haven't read it.
Then how can
have
you
you
say?
read the whole thing?
I have read the whole thing. Then how could
Well,
you
you
give an
should be
opinion?
down there fixing it now.
Well, we have
Out of the last 9 weeks, you've been on vacation, 7 of the 9 weeks.
Larry, you've been on vacation last year while you were campaigning. For the last year,
you
we have
haven't?
voted some 30 different times to repeal the bill in whole or part and offer other suggestions. In every case, the Senate has refused to take up any of those. And so we have been working on this and offering a number of things to give people opportunities to see their doctors that they choose to get an insurance plan that they want. What has happened since that bill has passed is healthcare costs has increased for the average family by $2,300, while the president said healthcare costs would come down. My constituents said they didn't want that bill, and I went along with my constituents because it is a bad version. Now, there's a number of things we have to do with health care, and among them is make sure people who are sick can get health insurance, make sure people who are sick don't lose their health insurance, make sure kids can stay on their bill. But there's a heck of a lot of taxes in this bill and other things that need to be changed.
I have a quote from one of the newspaper articles. I wouldn't have voted for it, which is not the same as saying that I will vote to repeal it. And if you've got 45 minutes, if at any particular time you want to yell that you're going to vote to repeal it, you're welcome to do it. But I do want to get to something that I also thought was important. And he has been portrayed by those working with you, perhaps even yourself out on the stump, as liberal. And they're calling him Liberal Larry. Now, he's an ex-Marine. He's got the Marine thing on. He's got the button, I should say. Thank you for that service. He's been a sheriff for a couple of terms. He's, of course, with the Commissioner's Office, Washington County. He doesn't look like your traditional
State
leftist.
trooper, 24
A state
years.
trooper retired after 24 years. Really that liberal?
Well, the titles don't make you liberal or conservative in terms of jobs you've held. There's lots of people in various positions who have those issues. Let's look at the issues here. I have pledged to my constituents to do all I can to keep from raising taxes. He has raised taxes 22% in Washington County. I have pledged to work continuously to reform health care services, to reduce the size of government. What's happened in Washington, D.C. is government has grown massively over the years, and I'm committed to help reduce the size of government. Under this administration, you look at such things as Department of Energy, Department of Education, Department of Labor, all growing by 160 to 200%. We can't live that way, and I want to see us reduce those issues and change those things. That's where my commitment is to support and to represent my constituents.
When we come back, we're going to take it right up with you, Mr. Maggi. I want to get into that comment about whether he's out of touch. He has had some votes that have been very controversial, I think even within his own party. We're going to talk about his partisanship or lack thereof, and we'll talk a little bit more about your qualifications and go from there. We'll do that starting in 2 minutes. I'm Ellis Cannon on Debate Night here at PCNC.